Now today I want to talk about resistance. Now there are two types of resistance. One is a green flag, but one is a red flag. So we always really need to check in the moment and be aware of which resistance is showing up for us and how we need to move through it. Now, if you're in a process of up-leveling or trying to make a big change in your life or quit your job or start a business or try and lead a more conscious lifestyle, whatever it is, resistance is a very common part of this process. Anytime we're about to do a big change or about to up level, we'll generally feel that resistance. It's new for the body. This is very common. I'm a self-activation coach, so I come across resistance all the time. And even though I've been in this process for many years, I myself still constantly meet resistance as I constantly evolve. So this is something that we need to embrace for the rest of our journey and the rest of our lives, if you choose to continually change and grow and evolve. Now, the two types of resistance are external resistance and internal resistance. Now, let's first talk about external resistance. If you meet an external resistance, this is a red light usually. External resistance is where you make the move, you make your purpose power play, or you quit your job, or you're trying to manifest something and you put all your energy and effort into manifesting this outcome and you don't get it. You don't get the outcome you're trying to get, or you get crickets when you try to start your new business or something like that, right? It doesn't eventuate. Your plan doesn't eventuate. Now, this is usually an external resistance. An external resistance is a red light. It means you might need to pause, reanalyze, measure, assess, pivot. It might not be time yet. You might not have the experience yet. You might not have the expertise yet. Maybe the right people aren't in your life yet. Maybe the, more blocks need to fall into place before everything really goes smoothly. So if you meet an external resistance, it's really important just to take a moment and pause, right? So for example, let's say you want to quit your job and you're like, that's it, I'm quitting my job. And then right before you quit your job, you have a dental emergency or your car breaks down and it costs you, several hundred or several thousands of dollars that was going to be your little security nest. Now, should you go and quit your job? That's up to you. You have to decide if it's an internal or external resistance. But sometimes it might mean that it's just not time yet. Because, for example, let's say you do quit your job and you're like, I'm going to start my own purpose-led business. But then because you're in this financial stress or you're scared that you're going to be evicted, it's really hard to create from that place. So maybe it's not time. Maybe it's telling you, well, go a little bit slower. Right? Keep that job and still start the business. It's not necessarily don't go forward. It's a moment just to pause, think, reflect, and pivot, right? Try something else. So if you're meeting external resistance over and over again, have a look at that, right? It's really asking us just to take a moment. Now, I'll give an example in my own life. I remember I did a launch and I was really, really excited. I pushed through all the internal resistance, right? I made the big purpose power play. I launched this product into the world. I was so excited. It felt so aligned to me and it failed. Complete flop. I did not get the results that I wanted. And of course, this is so discouraging. I ran off into my bed, tears streaming down my face. And I did a meditation. I was like, why did this happen? I don't understand. I was crying to the universe. And in that meditation, it showed me that the model that I was trying to propose, the pricing was way too low. And what I was offering was going to lead to burnout. And it was just all wrong. And I was going to just end up having to be like overgiving to so many people and really not getting the, enough money to even probably support the lifestyle that I wanted for the amount of hours that it was going to cost me. And I came out of that meditation, I was like, oh, thank you, external resistance, right? And so I could pivot and change that product and relaunch it in a much better way, right? So it was a red light and it was a moment just to take a pause. Now, what's really interesting and difficult about resistance is that It's very much like yin yang. I love the concepts of yin yang because yin yang shows us that the boundaries are always changing. And it also shows us that what might be yin one day could be yang the next day, right? What is yin and yang depends on the people, the situation, the environment, the time, right? So sometimes you might post something or present something to the world and you still get crickets, but it's not an external resistance. It's an internal resistance. The universe is giving you some tests and it's asking you, are you going to push through that internal resistance? Now, internal resistance are things like fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, overthinking, anxiety, fluctuating self-doubt. Anything that is coming from our internal place that is an excuse, a trigger, it's placing blame on something to stop ourselves from taking the action, right? It is usually ourselves undermining our own action. Now, if you're having internal resistance, this is usually a green light, right? It's telling you, it's giving you a lesson that there is something in there that you have to break through and push through to get the results that you want. It's not a red light, right? But it feels very much like a red light. So like I just said before, and this is one of the probably the most common examples, is that people, they're like, okay, this is it. I believe in my voice. I want to share my teachings. I want to share my purpose-led business idea. And they do it and they prepare all their posts or their business plan or whatever it is, and they post it and they get crickets. No one likes it. No one really responds. No one gives them the amazing validation that they were seeking. And they think, oh, it's all wrong. I'm not doing this anymore. And so they never take any more action. They completely give up on the goal or the change that they were trying to do. So this is why it's really important to understand exactly which resistance is showing up. Because if you're really, really sure about where you're coming from and you really believe in the moves that you're making, you need to understand that that's not an external resistance. The fact that, someone didn't like it doesn't mean that you should go and quit, right? Or for example, maybe right before posting, you think it's not good enough, and so you don't do it, right? Or you think, oh, let me just refine the business idea one more time, right? And all of these things really can just be a sign of, internal resistance that we have to break through. Now, what is so hilarious about this is that I experienced this just this morning. Now, I've wanted to start this kind of self-activation series for a while. And then this month, I really dedicated that I was going to start doing regular videos on YouTube. But then I kept meeting this internal resistance that I was blaming as external resistance. So, for example, I thought, well, maybe I should get my hair cut, right? But then there were no appointments. So then I had to delay my starting date by several days. I said, okay, then I got my hair cut. I said, tomorrow is the day. And then I woke up. My eyes were puffy. I felt really tired. It's cancer season. I was crying. I was like, oh, okay, it's not today, right? It feels like an external resistance. Surely I would have had, a great night's sleep and I'd wake up feeling refreshed, right? That would be the sign. So I said, okay, tomorrow. And then guess what happened, right? I went to bed early. I ate well. I tried to do everything so that I could wake up today to do a great day of recording. And guess what? I slept even worse. And then I came up with a big pimple. And I thought, oh, external resistance, it's not the day. And then I really had to catch myself because actually it is the only thing left on my to-do list this week that I had to do. I have a whole bunch of other excuses of tasks that I could do, but making these videos was the number one task that I had to do this week. And I still hadn't done it. And I started to realize that this wasn't external resistance. This was just little tests to highlight that it was an internal resistance, that I kept making these excuses of why it wasn't today, of why it will be tomorrow. And the universe, or not the universe, just kept putting these little tests and saying, are you sure? Are you sure it's not you? And I really realized that the resistance was internal. And so I showed up today no matter how I looked, and I broke through the internal resistance. So if you're really in this process of self-activating your highest potential, making those changes that you've been waiting to make, don't wait another decade. Go and follow my channel. I'm going to be talking about lots of different self-activation techniques, the kind of challenges you're going to come across, the obstacles you're going to come across. We're going to cry together. We're going to laugh together. We're going to do everything together, and we're going to push through the resistance little bit by little bit. And I hope that even just today just gives you that little bit of push, and even just to show you as an example that if I can show up today, so can you. So if you're dealing with any type of resistance, I would love to hear what that resistance is, how you push through it, or maybe didn't push through it, and we will try and move through these resistance together. Now, the reason that I'm doing this series is because it's a very difficult journey. Trust me, I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and it's still difficult. I'm still coming up against challenges. And so that's why I'm creating the Self-Activation Academy, and why I'm going to do this series, so that you don't have to do it alone. We all can help each other, and we do this by sharing our real stories, because your story probably is the same as other people's stories, and the way that you push through it actually just might be the self-activation that somebody else needs.